News Radio 710 KEEL with Robert J. Wright and Erin McCarty. Weekday mornings 6 till 9 on News Radio 710 KEEL.
Good morning, it's 8:11. News Radio 710 KEEL, Robert J. Wright and Erin McCarty. Is controversy a fair enough word? Is that what?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, the fellow's name we're going to talk to now his name is Chris Butler, and he's an investigative reporter for Watchdog.org. I got that right, don't I, Mr. Chris?
Yes, indeed, you did.
Okay, so we spoke last hour with State Senator Robert Adley, and he said that all the meetings that were leading up, that the EPA had promised openness and transparency, but that doesn't seem to be the case. You've been hunting behind the scenes of all this. What's going on?
Well, it doesn't really surprise me that the EPA is not showing any transparency here. I've done previous articles on the Environmental Protection Agency, and I can tell you that they run roughshod over people's lives. They won't hesitate to disrupt the life of a business owner or a landowner who has a project going forward and the EPA will require some sort of lengthy, time-consuming, and very costly environmental impact statement to determine if, the four-eyed snail's habitat won't be disrupted by a particular project. But here, this is a more dangerous situation, I think one could reasonably argue. And you would think that the EPA would apply its own standards to itself by having an environmental impact statement.
I was just going to say, pardon me, that the crux of your article was that the EPA in this instance is not applying the same rules to itself that it would apply to everybody else.
That's right. I mean, this is a situation where if they have their way, toxins could rise into the atmosphere in Webster Parish and spread in Shreveport, Texas, Arkansas, Monroe, wherever, and could potentially cause cancer, cause blood pressure rates to rise, and cause people to pass birth defects on to their children.
What are the alternatives? What are the alternatives to the way they're proposing?
Well, there are alternatives. I spoke with an environmental toxicologist. His name is Bob Fornoy. He has a PhD. He taught at Louisiana Tech for years, and he has a lot of expertise in this situation, in these matters. And the science of the alternatives escaped me, but he told me that if it was up to a private business or anybody else, that they would apply these alternatives. The alternatives include a controlled detonation chamber, or recycling this material, or refurbishing it. But for some particular reason, the EPA and the Army are in a rush to burn this into the atmosphere.
Now, in your article, you asked the question, as I recall, what's the EPA's real motive here for wanting to fast track this burn? I mean, was that a rhetorical question, or would you care to speculate what that might be?
Well, the stated reason from the EPA is this material is deteriorating enough, and as early as maybe spring or summer, it could deteriorate to the point where it might cause another explosion. I won't speculate beyond that. I will just fault the EPA for the lack of transparency in this matter and for not applying their own standards to themselves.
Senator Adley had mentioned to us last hour, and you sort of hinted at it in your article, in regards to diseases and cancers and birth defects, etc. He said that he had asked the EPA about previous testing of this kind of open burn with these chemicals. And first they promised him reports, then they said, look on the website. And he said he never got the reports and he can't find anything on the website. What have you heard about that? Do you know anything about what's going on behind those scenes?
No, I pressed the Region 6 office in Dallas. I sent them a very lengthy, detailed list of questions. Of course, they won't talk to me over the phone or in person. And that was one of the things
that narrows it down. Pardon me, that sort of narrows down your options, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I asked them that. I asked them if they would do something like this in an area that was wealthier, was a bit more metropolitan or had residents who had more political clout. They avoided those questions altogether. And in lieu of that, they just sent me a press release, which is what they've done to me before in past stories I've done about their agency.
Do you anticipate they will be doing public meetings about this and they will have a change of heart in light of this outcry?
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of public pressure building. This story has already hit the national headlines. I hate to say it, but in my experience with the EPA, they're coldly detached. I would dare say they're composed of a lot of Sheldon Cooper types who are more interested in science than human compassion and understanding how their policies and their practices affect real people. So hopefully enough political pressure will build. I understand Louisiana's congressional delegation is heavily involved in getting some answers. We'll just have to wait and see. If they do so, if they're more transparent, I'm afraid they're going to do so only begrudgingly.
So what is as an investigative reporter who's digging into this, what is your next sort of, what's your next move?
Well, I'm going to do a little more research. I don't want to give away too much about what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep pressing the EPA. I'm going to find out who is monitoring and overseeing Explo. I mean, obviously, people who were supposed to be accountable to one another weren't in terms of Explo and the U.S. Army. I'm going to find out what was going on behind the scenes there.
Pardon me for interrupting. Pardon me. Are you the least bit surprised, just as an aside, that a lot of private companies, one specifically locally, who were bidding on this job suddenly are backing off of it like it's radioactive, no pun intended?
Oh, I'm not surprised in the least. If I were a business owner in Webster Parish or North Louisiana, I would not want to touch this for a variety of reasons.
Most of them legal, I would assume.
Legal reasons, and in terms of, credentials with the community, I wouldn't touch this. It doesn't surprise me.
Is it going to come down to money, that it's going to be cheaper to do the open tray burn rather than incinerate or recycle or something else?
Well, it's funny you ask that question because the EPA has never been crazy about saving money. I mean, they began enforcing these coal emission reductions last year, which is going to raise electricity rates and is going to cost people a lot of jobs. The EPA's mission has always been, well, we're going to do what's best for the environment, cost be darned. And it seems to be the polar opposite in this situation. So I'm going to keep pressing the EPA to find out why they're so crazy about saving money here, but not saving money in everything else they do.
Chris Butler, the website is watchdog.org. He is an investigative reporter there. Link to his latest story on our website at 710keel.com. Mr. Chris, great work, man. Great on the radio, too. Let's stay in touch, and we hope to have you back again, and thanks for your hard work.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Robert J. Wright, Erin McCarty, KEEL News Radio time right now is 8:19.